Let's look at it this way. Did you ever die?
No.
No, so you have no experience of it. Did you ever see a dead man?
No.
You've seen dead person? No,
No.
you might have seen dead bodies. Did you meet anyone who actually died and came back and told you, I had died like this?
I haven't.
No. There are people who have had near-death experience. Near is not good enough. I nearly ate, is it good enough?
Not at all.
So I nearly died is not good enough. I nearly lived, is it good enough?
No.
So, you haven't experienced it, you haven't seen it, nor have you had a first-hand information from anybody. So from where did you get this idea that there is something called as death? Death is a fiction created by ignorant people. Death is the creation of people who live their lives in total unawareness. There is only life, life and life alone, moving from one dimension to another dimension to another. There are many dimensions to the life process. So once that it passes the dimension of being embodied in a physical frame, we generally consider that as death. You need to understand that the moment you're born, you have a death sentence upon you. When, where and how is the only question but you're on a death row. Your death is confirmed, isn't it?
Definitely.
We don't know whether you'll get educated or not. We don't know whether you'll get married or not. We don't know whether you'll know joy or not. We don't know whether you'll know misery or not. But we know one day you will die. That one thing is guaranteed.
We don't like it though.
You don't like it because you have wrong ideas about it. There's a beautiful story in the yogic law. It is part of the Indian tradition that when someone builds a new dwelling or a house, they invite a sage or a yogi to come and bless the house. Because it's a new space, they want it to have a certain, positive spiritual reverberance, so they always invite a sage. Yogis are invited to new homes. So they invited a yogi, a certain rich family built a beautiful house, they invited the yogi. They welcomed him wonderfully, they treated him like a king, they served him food. Then, time to leave, then both the husband and wife came and asked for a blessing. Then the yogi said, first let your parents die, then you die, then let your children die. The man freaked out. He said, you fool, we treated you like a king, and now you say, first my father should die, then I should die, then my children should die, what is this nonsense? The yogi was surprised, what did I say wrong? Would it be good if you died before your father? Or would it be good if your children die before you?
Terrible.
There is nothing wrong with death, it has to happen. Only because there is death, there is life. It is just that we are only concerned that it doesn't happen in an untimely manner, that we don't want our children to die before us. If we want it to happen in a proper order of life. If it happens in a proper order, it is beautiful, that means your life has gone well. Now this whole fear about death is simply because you have no idea about what it is. You have formed ideas about everything, just about everything. But no matter what ideas you formed about life, when you're confronted with the moment of death, you really don't know anything. That one space of life which has remained uncorrupted by human mind. Everything else we have corrupted, isn't it? Whatever was supposed to be sacred, all these things are hugely corrupted by human mind. Human minds have corrupted love, relationships, God, divinity, everything. They have corrupted it and twisted it out whichever way they want. Death is one thing that they're still clueless about. Though a lot of people would like to talk authoritatively about it, they know they're going to go to heaven, they're dead sure about it. If they're so sure, I don't see what they're waiting for.
No, they're trying not to go very soon.
They're doing everything not to go to heaven. Why? If you're so sure you're going to a wonderful place, better place than this, you must hurry up. because you're not sure. You talk, but you're not sure 100% where you will go, what will happen to you. Just to solace yourself, just to psychologically be able to handle life, you create all these things. But essentially, the very idea of death has come to you because people have been talking about it without knowing about it. Otherwise, if your societies did not speak about it, you would just know your present existence, the way you are right now is not permanent. That you would know, but you wouldn't have any other ideas about it. Even now you don't have, you imagine that you have.
But there's so much attachment to this. My father's 89, he's telling me, you know, he wants to live the next day and the next day, just one more sunset, one more sunset. He said, you know, I lived a full life, it just came so quick, I just don't want it to end yet, you know? So it's, you don't want to have that thing we don't know happen. This we know.
See, that's because your whole life, you're only living in your mind, not in this world. You're only thinking about life, you're not experiencing life. Just look back and see, in the last 24 hours, how many moments have you truly experienced the way they are? You're only thinking about it. So, you are a psychological existence, you are not an existential existence. Whatever happens in your mind is irrelevant because you can make anything happen. You can imagine anything and think it is true. What happens in your mind, what you think and feel has nothing to do with the reality of life. But right now, humanity has invested so much towards what they think and feel. They've made it so important, obviously they will miss life. What this essentially means is, your own petty creation that you create in your mind has become so important for you that you are missing the magnificent creation of the Creator. You missed it all. Now at 89 you want to watch a sunset, nothing wrong, at least now you're aware of it, I'm glad. But why did you miss it for so many years? Because you're too busy with your own petty creation in your mind, isn't it? This body is just a piece of this earth. It has popped up from this earth and it'll go back to this earth. Right now you're sitting here. Before you and me came here on this planet, countless number of people have walked this planet, isn't it? Where are they? All topsoil. This one will also be topsoil unless someone buries you real deep, fearing that you may rise from the dead. So, this body right now is a debt that you have taken from the planet, it's a loan from the planet. Let's say I give you $1 million loan today. I won't, I'm just telling you.
Why not?
And in 10 years' time, you made this 1 million into 100 million. And after 10 years, if I come looking for you, what would you do with me?
I'd give you $1 million back.
You would
Plus a little
welcome me,
interest.
you would welcome me, I'm your dear friend, isn't it?
Yes.
You would welcome me gladly and give back my million and maybe give me an extra million and send me. Suppose I gave you 1 million today and in 10 years' time you squandered it completely and you lost everything. And if I come looking for you, what do?
I'd
Terror.
hope you die first.
Terror. When a debtor comes, it's worse than death for most people, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is just the same. This is a loan from the planet. If you have done something truly wonderful out of it, when the moment to pay back the loan comes, you would give it back joyfully. If you have done something truly significant and wonderful things out of it. Otherwise, when the moment to pay back the loan comes, you will shiver in your pants. So, how you die in many ways indicative of how you have lived within yourself. It's in that context they might have said the significance of the last moment. And the last moment is significant because if you can maintain awareness at that moment, the quality of that moment endures beyond that. You can try this with your sleep. Tonight when you go to sleep, create a very loving atmosphere within yourself. Really be conscious and loving and fall asleep that way with a big smile on your face. you will see that quality will perpetuate through the night. When you wake up in the morning, you will see that quality radiating out of you. So, Eastern cultures have always made this happen, that you must sleep in a particular way, you must wake up in a particular way. For all this, they've fixed particular methods as to how to do it. Yoga and spiritual processes have specific ways of how to go to bed, how to wake up in the morning. This is why. Because it will perpetuate through. When that moment of transition is of a certain quality, naturally that quality endures. So when that moment of death is of a certain level of awareness or pleasantness, naturally that pleasantness and awareness will endure. Because when you're here in this embodied form, when you are here with this body and this conscious intellect, you have a discriminatory mind. Right now, whatever is offered to you, you can choose. But once you have left your body and your discriminatory mind, after that you don't have choices, you only move by tendencies. Whatever your tendency is, accordingly you will move.
So are you saying we're less conscious when we drop our bodies? See, there's always been this, harboring this hope that…
It is not about being conscious or not conscious.
You know something
You
when
have
you drop
lost your
body.
discriminatory intellect. Now that there's a discriminatory intellect, if I give you a mud ball and an apple, you can look at this and eat the apple, not the mud ball. But once you don't have a discriminatory intellect, you go according to your tendencies. Even right now, so many people on this planet are causing misery to themselves, not because they want to, they're going by their tendencies, they have become compulsive. Compulsiveness simply means that you're not exercising your discriminatory intellect, you're not aware enough to do that. That is true even now for most people. If people were exercising their discriminatory capabilities, if they were aware enough to do that, would you choose misery or joy?
Never, never choose misery, always
You would
choose
never
joy.
choose misery, isn't it? Nobody would be miserable on the planet then, if they exercise the discriminatory quality of their intellect. So that final moment, if you create a certain tendency of pleasantness, then beyond, what is beyond the body, that transition will be very pleasant. It's based on this. When a person is dying, when a person is near death, generally in almost every culture this awareness is there to some extent, that at that time, that's not the time for anger, that's not the time for, remorse, that's not the time for hatred. All those things you drop and do the best that you can do to create a pleasant atmosphere around him. It once happened, there were two sisters who had a feud between them. And they had not spoken to each other for 35 years.
Wow.
So, this is Matilda and Lucia. Matilda, at the age of 87, was about to die. She was on her deathbed. Then Lucia came to see her. Matilda looked at her and said, "Okay, I'm going to die. So if I die, all that I hold against you is forgiven. But just in case if I make it, it's all the way… just the way it was." Everything is just the way it was. You better know that. So we waste life and try to make use of death, you cannot do that. If you maintain a certain level of awareness right through your life, the moment of passing also can happen in your awareness. You live a life of unawareness and you expect that moment to be aware. Such things don't happen to people.
Sadhguru, is there such a thing as immortality?
See, the very idea of life being what it is has come to you only because of the mortal nature of what it is right now. The spiritual process for a human being always begins only when he thinks about death, not when he thinks about God. When he thinks about God, he only thinks of living better, having more things, having a better life, having an easy ride. But the moment he starts contemplating on his mortal nature, that's when he begins to think, what is this all about?
It's true for me.
What is before this? What is beyond this? So, mortality or mortal nature of life is not a curse, it's a blessing. What we need to understand is, what you call as my body is something that you have gathered. What is the big deal about giving it back? You're making it such a big deal because you are so identified with things that you're gathered. You become that. In your experience of life, you've become the things that you have gathered. Because you have become that which you have gathered, this is the essence of ignorance. This is the essence of pain, this is the essence of misery, this is the essence of suffering, that you believe yourself to be something that you are not. This is the essence of chattering mind. People come and ask me again and again, Sadhguru, I try to meditate, my mind is going all over the place. The moment you identify yourself with something that you're not, your mind will not stop for a moment. You do what you want. The only way to stop it is either shoot you in the head or you come to an awareness as to what is you and what is not you. If you come to that, mind will become utterly still. If I sit here for 5 days, I will sit here without a single thought. That may sound dumb to you, but no, because life, the phenomena of life is far bigger than thought. What can you think? The creation is so big. Life is such a absolutely unfathomable phenomena, but now you're engrossed in your own thought because you're identified with things that you're not and you're helplessly trapped in thought. Because you're trapped in thought, now you have to glorify that, otherwise you'll feel like a fool. Right now, the thought process, humanity has paid such importance to thought process to a point where somebody went to the extent of saying, I exist because I think. It's not so. You can think because you do exist. Your existence is first, but that's been completely missed. Because the experience of your existence has been missed, whatever you have gathered in the form of body and mind has become so important. Now dropping it has become such a big problem. Once you're existentially here, that is, your experience of life is beyond the limitations of what you have gathered, that is, beyond the limitations of your physical body and your thought process and mind, then living and dying are not two different phenomena. They're the same. Every moment, you can say right now I'm living, or you can say I'm dying, because you're actually dying. One day the process will be complete, but you're actually dying. You may do many things in your life, you may do them or you may not do them. This is one thing you will do. You need to understand, from your birth till the last moment, you are walking in a straight line, straight towards death. You may look this way at the mountains, you may look that way at the lake, you may look at relationships, you may fall in love, you may suffer, you may enjoy, but essentially every moment of your life, you're walking straight towards your grave. So that is the most inevitable thing. And that's the only thing which enhances the quality of your life. I am not saying you must choose to die. Death does not need your assistance. Because whenever death happens, it happens with absolute efficiency. Death is always super efficient. It's only life which needs our assistance. It is only life that can be enhanced constantly. So your focus is on life, but unless you embrace death, you cannot live. If you try to avoid death, all that will happen to you is, you will end up avoiding life. If you are every moment afraid, what will happen to me, or will I die, you will only avoid life. You will not avoid death. Because what you call as death is just a transition of life, which has to happen. So immortality is a very immature idea. Unless you go beyond the physicality of life, everything that is not physical is always immortal. It is only the physicality which is mortal. So if your experience of life right now transcends the limitations of the physical, you're already immortal. I'm immortal because I don't exist. I am immortal because I am not identified with my physical body. I enjoy my body, I use my body, but I'm constantly aware that it is only an accumulation. Any day I have to drop it. So this is immortality. In awareness, you're immortal. Only in unawareness, you are mortal.
Sadhguru, there's so many choices that we have about our life. More choices I'm seeing, the more aware I get. Can it also get to a point where we have choices about our death, how we die, or is there any way that we have some kind of choice?
We need to understand this. Everything that you can experience is life. What you call as death also is life. So if there are choices about death, they're definitely… what you're referring to as death is just the last moment of life. So that final moment when you transcend the limitations of your physical body, that happens only once in your lifetime. Almost everything in your life may happen many times over, but this one thing happens only once in your lifetime. And it's the last thing that you do. The last thing that you do in your life is death. So I want you to understand death as life, not something else. So this is the last act of your life. Is it not important that you choose to make it happen gracefully and wonderfully? Is it not very important?
Very important.
If you are fearful of it, if you're ignorant of the ways of life and you create resistance towards it, naturally you will miss that possibility. Spiritual process. People on the spiritual path choose the time, date and place of their death. The yogi always wants to know the time and date of his death ahead of time. He fixes it many years ahead. He says, on this day, at this time, I will leave. And he leaves because he has created the necessary awareness within himself to live consciously. Leaving this body consciously, without damaging this body, like you take off your clothes and walk away, like that you take off your body and walk away. If you can do that, that is the ultimate possibility in your life. Once you have gained this much awareness to know where you as a being and this physical body which you gathered, where it's connected, where is the connection, what is the hold? Once you know this, if your awareness has grown to such a point, then you can disentangle yourself whenever the moment is right for you. So is this suicide? Definitely not. Suicide happens out of frustration, out of anger, out of fear, out of inability to bear with suffering. This is neither suicide nor euthanasia. This is about being so aware that when the life has completed its complete cycle, you know that it has completed that and you walk out of it. You walk out of this. And this is not death either. This is known as samadhi, where a human being has developed sufficient awareness within himself where he can separate himself from the physicality that he has gathered and as to who he is. So in that level of awareness, one can live. If such a level of awareness, if you do not attain, at least you can make that last moment very graceful, pleasant and joyful and blissful for yourself, if you manage certain things. So when we say a spiritual process, we are not just helping people to live well. I also help people to die well. Helping people to die well does not mean we will assist them to die as euthanasia enthusiasts are talking about. Not in that sense. Helping people to die means that that moment of passing from physicality to beyond, from being embodied to being disembodied, it is very important it has to happen in utmost awareness and grace. So we can create that moment for every human being if that human being is willing to cooperate and willing to pay some attention to himself now. So if one wants to exercise this choice, certain amount of preparation is needed. As I said earlier, if you can manage this, if you can every day practice this, that you move from your wakefulness to sleep, in awareness, if you manage that, this last moment of passing from life to death will happen absolutely gracefully for you. There are other methods also. In India, always people choose, traditionally people choose not to die with their loved ones. Because if you die among your family, so many emotions will come. Naturally, you'll try to cling to life. You will not allow it to happen gracefully. So people travel to faraway places which are considered spiritually vibrant and they want to shed their body in that space. This has been traditionally so. Even today, thousands of people still do this. This may be completely unthinkable in the West because they want to die in the comfort of their family. That is not a wise thing. It is truly wise for a person to choose a space which is spiritually conducive, which is vibrant in a certain way, and he lives there with as much grace as possible. If you lived your life with grace, it becomes extremely important that you die with grace.
Sadhguru, I really want to leave by my choice. Is this in the realm of possibility for somebody like me who comes here so identified? Is it still?
It definitely is for you. Definitely is for you.